Thank you all for coming in. The Columbian Editorial Board is pleased to welcome candidates for Clark County Council Position 4. And right out off at the top, I want to mention this is the seat held by Gary Medvigy, who is not seeking re-election. Also want to mention that candidate Shannon Roberts was not able to join us. We will be speaking with her some other time, and also will consider her as we make recommendations to our readers. Let's see. With that, I'm Greg Jane. I'm the editorial page editor at the Columbian. I'll let the other board members introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Colleen Keller. I'm the assistant news editor of the Columbian.
And I'm Craig Brown. I'm the editor of the Columbian and Columbian.com. And I do happen to know Joe a little bit. So he and my wife worked together at the 78th Street Heritage Farm a few years ago.
So full disclosure.
Yep.
So, and with that, we'll move on to the candidates. Take just 1 to 2 minutes to introduce yourself, explain why you are running for this position, and then after that, we'll move on to specific policy questions. And we'll start at this end.
Okay. I'm Dorothy Gasque. I'm a combat veteran and a data professional in my life now. And I served on the Charter Review Commission, where I was the chair of the subcommittee for the ethics policy. And, the voters overwhelmingly approved that, but unfortunately the council still hasn't really written and adopted an ethics policy specifically for them. And so that's one of my main motivations for running, is really kind of completing that work. But also I'm just really frustrated overall in, our government hasn't been able to solve critical issues, and they tend to get too lost in the weeds. And it's really time for us to find really balanced solutions. I want to bring my mission-focused approach to life to the council, and really work hard on staying on mission and really solving these critical issues.
Great, thank you. Sure.
First of all, thank you for allowing us to speak at this forum. My name is Joe Zimmerman. My family owns and operates Busy Farms in Brush Prairie. First of all, I am a fifth generation Clark County farmer. Depending on which part of my family we're talking about, I can be my grandmother's family has been here for 6 generations. Even on my mother's side, it's only a mere 4 generations that we've been here. Clark County is who I am, and my family helped to build this county even before Washington was a state. And the reason I say that is why I am running for the Clark County Council. A deep sense of personal ownership for this county and the county, shall we say, the identity of the county, that I am very afraid we may lose if we allow people to simply lead our county based on a handful of issues that seem to be, shall we say, very self-centered at times. I am running for the county council because I want to represent all of the people of Clark County and that county identity that I don't want to see lost.
Great, thank you. Matt?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Name's Matt Little. I live in Camas with my wife and 2 kids. And I'm running to help families and businesses who are struggling with high costs. I'm also running because I want Clark County to be more responsible for solutions to homelessness and affordable housing. And I also have some ideas of how we can grow better, how we can grow more balanced. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit more. I have a biology degree from Dartmouth College. I have a master's of public administration from the Maxwell School at Syracuse. And I'm currently the policy director for Ducks Unlimited. And I run a nonprofit business called World Salmon Council that teaches kids about salmon. My career started in DC. I worked for 2 federal agencies, and then I worked in Congress for members of both parties, most notably with U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. I was a senior advisor on science, agriculture, and environment. And ever since then, I've been out here for 20 years. In the Pacific Northwest. I started out as a park ranger when I moved out here. And then ever since, I've been working with nonprofit business groups that work on conservation. So I've been working, lobbying the legislatures in different states, including this state. And I'm a nonpartisan candidate, which means I value all perspectives. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. And Peter?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us here this afternoon for this opportunity to chat. It's really great. My name is Peter Cutile. I'm running for Clark County Council, District 4. We've been here now for 30, going on 31 years. My wife and I have been married here for 10 years. We got 2 boys and we live in Camas and we love it here. Clark County's home. And I don't like the direction necessarily that the country's going in, let alone our county. I'm running because I don't like the direction the county's going in. Instead of finding ways to cut costs and save money, we have a budget that's ballooning and out of control. And the people who it's hurting the most is our small businesses and our families, which are the backbone of our community and our economy. Instead of helping them, it's hurting them. And I don't just believe we can do better. I know we can do better. And I'm confident that I can be the one to make the change. I'm the only one uniquely positioned with a background and way to approach this to bring change to our Clark County, specifically District 4 as well. Our family emigrated from Romania 4 decades ago. And I don't want to see communism or totalitarian government control rear their ugly heads here in our Clark County. The unfortunate reality is we're already seeing some of that. We're seeing budgeting that is out of control with a budget that's ballooning. We're seeing homelessness. We're seeing drug crisis and so much more. And all that needs to absolutely stop. We need to listen to what the people want, and they've spoken, and they want safety. They want clean streets where everybody can run around and enjoy and have a beautiful Clark County. They want common sense transportation solutions that increase capacity. Again, working for what the people want. That's my platform, working for you. And then they want affordable and housing development that's going to be suitable for all people. So my name is Peter Cutile, and I'm running for Clark County District 4, working for you.
Great, thank you. And thanks again to each of you. Start on something that a couple of you touched upon, homelessness. And housing in the county. What should be the county's approach? What can the county council do regarding that issue? And we'll start at this end this time.
Yeah, I think it's critical to understand that anyone who's homeless is a friend, a family member, a brother, and a sister. And I don't necessarily believe in throwing a Band-Aid on what is a gaping wound. It's been proposed to have 150 units developed, and that's not going to solve the issue. We need to work together with other institutions to have a collaborative effort, working with our sheriff's department, mental health institutions, social support structures, to create a path forward for all these individuals. We need to move away from harm reduction as well. It's been noted that we gave out more needles than there are individuals in Clark County, and that's not the proper solution. And throwing more money at the situation isn't going to solve it. We need to have a collaborative effort to bring about the appropriate solution.
Now, one thing regarding that, would you have supported the county helping to pay for the bridge shelter as the city of Vancouver requested?
No, I would not have. No.
Okay, let's move on, Matt. Homelessness, housing.
Yeah, I think the county really needs to step up on this issue. It's a priority of mine, as well as affordable housing.
Do you think the county hasn't yet?
I think they're working very hard on it, but I think they need to prioritize it more. I sat down with Mayor Ann McInerney-Ogle, and she endorsed me. After our conversation, we talked about how to solutions to this, including the bridge project, shelter. The county shouldn't be sitting on funds when they can help a solution, even if there's some procedures to go through. I think we need to act as quickly as we can. There's too many people that are being impacted by homelessness, and the county can take a leadership role on this. That was some of the issues that I talked with Mayor Ann. There's been a lot of competition with the cities versus partnership. And I would like to, if elected, lead more on that issue. And on affordable housing as well, I think we're going to talk about how we can grow better, but there's specific tools that we can use to incentivize affordable homes. And I would be very, very keen on trying to focus on those issues.
Now, one thing, what about what Peter mentioned about harm reduction and needle programs, stuff like that? Do you think that exacerbates the issue of homelessness?
I think a lot of the issues that Peter brought up are important to address. There's limited budgets, but the main thing that I'm concerned about is not being proactive on this issue. When you have opportunities in front of yourself, in front of the body to help people who are being pushed out of their homes, we need to take action. And I'm really concerned about the issue of homelessness starts often in the county unincorporated areas where people can't afford their homes. And they come to the cities because they can sleep in their car safely, more safely on the streets there, and there's more services. I think it's a shared issue, and then oftentimes I think the county's perspective is it's more a city issue. I think it's an equal shared issue, and we should go into these solutions as partners.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. I'm going to start kind of with an aside. I remember I took my first political science class at Clark College back in about 1996 or so. And I remember they said it's important to, if you're going to run for a political position, to marry well, to be associated with somebody of power. Well, let me tell you what, I instead married a young lady whose family was homeless, living in a Dodge motorhome over across Martin Luther King Avenue, across the way from Portland Meadows Racetrack, where we had a feed business, and that's where I met her. Although I grew up in an idyllic life, my wife grew up in that terrible cycle. And so it's extremely personal to me, not personal myself, but personal with her family. This cycle that they lived in was about every 3 years. It was drug use and alcohol and abuse and then homelessness and then shelter. Oh, and by the way, throw in Pentecostal Christianity, which mixed with that really well. And then again, this cycle over and over again. And I have to tell you, I have a huge heart for this community, this homeless community, to try to break that cycle. And what I have found, I've met recently with Jamie Spinelli of the Vancouver, she's head of Vancouver Homelessness Service. Thank you. Anyhow, one of the major problems, I believe, is actually an issue coming down from Washington State, is this idea of housing first. And the idea, you take a person, you put them in a house, they're not homeless. And according to many people on the inside, they go, that doesn't fix the problem. I have to say that the part of the homeless community and the homeless cycle that I am seeing that seems to be working is these safe stay communities. I am a big believer in them, and please understand, I'm not saying that we should have 30 or 40 of them, but I'm saying that they seem to do well. They seem to give people a good location to break that cycle as, shall we say, baby steps. You are now off the street. You are in a small community. It's a community of only, let's say, 10 or 15 people. We can now start to, shall we say, self-therapy within that group. We can start talking about the issues of why do we do the things we do? Why do we, go to these places? And then that can then take them to a housing location.
Do you think the county should adopt a similar model and build safe stay communities in unincorporated areas?
I would not be opposed to it. No. At the same time, please understand that there are, we have to understand that there are many different homeless people and many different reasons for homelessness. Let's just throw out three very general groupings. There's the people that are truly unhoused, they've lost their home for one reason or another. There are people that have, let's say, a drug issue, and then, people that may have a mental health issue. And then, of course, there's the combination of all three of those. So there are different scenarios for each and every person. But I think that, yes, the Clark County could potentially be the county that is looking to, to be the beacon on the hill, if you will. We are the county to look to that is doing this right and doing this for people, to truly not just get them off. There's a lot of folks that they're just looking to get them off the streets, but that doesn't fix the problem. And we need to do both.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on, Dorothy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most critical issue facing our community. And I think that it's been over a decade that we've been talking about this, and we're still facing shortfalls on housing. Homelessness is a reflection on our failures. It's not a reflection on the failure of the individual, but a failure of our society as a whole. And so that we need to be laser focused on this. And the most important thing we can do is work with the city of Vancouver, because they're already investing a lot of resources into this and creating a collaborative work with them and working with the other cities to ensure that they are taking care of their homeless also is really important. And, taking care of the people in unincorporated county and making sure that they're getting the resources they need. I do think the Sayscape homes are really working out really well. We need wraparound care. People need mental health care. They need, drug addiction treatment. They need mental health. They need more than just a place to stay. They also need jobs that pay enough for housing here. And that number is getting higher and higher. Right now, we're at what, $38 an hour for a 2-bedroom apartment. A median household can't afford a median house right now. These are major issues that we're facing that we definitely need to work on. And I think with making sure we have more affordable housing is zoning, permitting. These are all things that we all talk about that we can do, mixed use zoning, being a lot more flexible, making sure that we can build the housing that we need, up zoning so that we're building more multifamily housing, and really laser focus on this. This is our critical issue, and bringing wages up. We need economic development. We need jobs in this community that pay enough for housing.
Okay, Colin?
Yeah, so kind of continuing along the same thing, and Dorothy just pretty much touched on it. Can the county address its housing needs in the current growth boundary? Or do you think that that needs to be expanded at some point? And Dorothy, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, I think we have lots of room in the urban growth boundary. I think that we need to maximize density first. We need to preserve our green spaces. We need to preserve our farmlands. We need to preserve our timberland. Our farmlands provide food. Our timberland is a carbon sink. We need to have these things around for the future. And we also need to preserve the beauty of our community. I mean, that's what draws us all here. It's the reason I moved here. It's the reason a lot of people come here. So it's a beautiful and wonderful place to live. And it won't be a beautiful and wonderful place to live if we allow urban sprawl. Both my father and I were both stationed in Southern California, so I can tell you of all the horrors of urban sprawl. Where one major metropolitan area can spread across the entire southern part of the state. That's not what we want to see. And that's not what we should be doing. So definitely looking at maximizing density within the urban growth boundaries before we start stretching them out. And Joe?
Yeah. Most people that know me know that preservation of ag land and open space is a huge issue for me. However, I want people to know it's also not lost on me that I do believe that, there is a necessity in the next growth management plan. I firmly believe we will need to move the urban growth boundary. So for me, the question is, will we or won't we? The question is how much. And so I guess I want to let folks know, I come with the realization we do need to move it, but we need to move it, shall we say the minimal amount needed, the minimal necessary amount. I guess that's really all I have to say about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. This is one of the main reasons I'm running, and it's been a part of my career working on these kind of issues. I want to make sure that our growth is more balanced. Basically, there is a limitation to the Growth Management Act where you're only looking at a planning horizon of 20 years. Really, there are other tools out there that allows you to look out 100 or 200 years and actually vision the community you want to create on a map and make it happen. It's called TDRs. It's used in at least 6 different counties in Washington successfully, and it's been authorized by the legislature a long time ago. It has not been tried here. It's transferring of development rights. What you do is you create this map with city leaders, with port leaders. You would create opportunity zones of an area in the rural area where you want to keep farm land and open spaces intact. And then you would create opportunity zones in the urban centers where you want to go beyond zoning, current zoning requirements to do these mixed use developments that would provide more affordable homes, good jobs, close to jobs and services, where you'd want to go beyond what's already permitted through zoning. what happens is a transaction happens between those two areas. A developer sees an opportunity to go beyond the current zoning in an urban area and make a more lucrative investment in a community, which would help the community. They would make enough more money on this. There would be worth them to buy that development right from a farmer who then can be paid to keep his or her land the way it is without being forced to subdivide. So as a tool, there's a little bit more on my website, but I think it can be done in Clark County and it will take some leadership. But that's why I've been talking to mayors and the port leaders and stakeholders about this, because it's a way to vision a whole future way beyond the 20-year boundary that we're kind of stuck
What do you
in.
think that hasn't been used here?
I think the county has been hesitant to try new ideas. And I think that's part of the reason why the charter was written in 2014, create more separation of powers. But I think they've been reluctant to try new ideas. They might think that ideas are coming out of the Puget Sound and that doesn't fit Clark County, but it really does. That's another area that's experienced incredible growth like we are, and also wants to preserve their rural areas, because that's why people want to live here and locate here. They want that balance. They want walkable communities with good paying jobs, with services, but they also want to be able to go on a short trip to these open spaces and have a strong rural economy with working farms. And we can have that. You just have to plan beyond the 20-year horizon. If you just go 20 years, you just do an incremental growth. Do we push out the growth boundary this time? Yes. Do we fill that open lot with single family homes? That's what you're stuck with. And there are really good things that you can do with be creative on zoning to encourage ADUs, triplexes, duplexes, condos, townhomes, and things that are more affordable. And we will be on the council if elected, we would be doing those things. But there is this extra tool, and it is approved to be used with the Growth Management Act. And I would like to help implement that in the county.
Peter?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This is something I'm actually incredibly passionate about as my day job, and I'm a realtor. So I work day to day with prospective homeowners, and the challenge is real right now for an individual to buy a home within Clark County. The prices are skyrocketing. And a lot of that has to do with the cost of land and development. And the question is often put like this, do we expand the urban boundary line or do we create more density? Which is it? And I don't think we have to go one or the other. I really believe that there are optimal solutions in either way we do it. The problem is, how do we make this more affordable so the end user, the homeowner, the first-time homeowner, the person who wants to do a step-up house can actually buy a home? And so when we think about working within the urban boundary line already, there are so many opportunities available to us. We can reduce the amount of regulation on people who want to develop land. We can work to streamline impact fees, potentially reducing them and creating more transparency around them, which in turn downstream makes it more affordable for the end user, the homeowner. And we can do that while preserving the beautiful Clark County that we all love and enjoy. There's more than enough land within Clark County without going beyond the boundary line to have development. The challenge is the permitting process, which is incredibly challenging and monotonous. All of that could be and should be streamlined, and that's something that would work to champion. Now, if that's something that is at a standstill or is more difficult to work through, I'm for sure in favor of expanding that boundary line. We have more than enough land and more than enough planning and people within the county that we can work together with to expand and maintain both the beauty of our land while having wise, calculated development. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Okay, thank you.
No, and one thing, when you talk about reducing regulation, how much of that is within the purview of the county? How much of that is state regulation?
So with respect to the county, let's talk about like just the permitting process and putting on impact fees. I believe we would have a decent overview with that so we can have direct impact on that. We're thinking about builders and developers working together to take a piece of land and put it down so that we can have a new 100-unit housing development, right? We would have a say in how that permitting process goes. We should have it more streamlined. Like I'm working with somebody right now as an example, and they own their own land. They have a 5-acre piece of land and they just want to build their own house, right? Right now, I had to give them the hard news. It's going to be about 8 months of permitting before you can even touch the ground and break ground. It shouldn't take 8 months before a homeowner within their own land rights should be able to erect their own structure. They should have the capacity to do that within a month or two. We shouldn't have to go through so many hoops.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Craig?
So Clark County's jail is 40+ years old and is worn out and above capacity. What should the county do to address this issue? So Matt, you want to try that first?
Yeah, I met with Sheriff Atkins back when this was an issue 4 years ago, and it still is. That this is one of the biggest issues. Public safety is one of the largest pieces of the budget, the sheriff's office, and what to do with the jail and what capacity it has to take care of people appropriately. I believe strongly in investing in that. I think the county has done a good job in trying to prioritize funding for public safety for both of those areas. And I would support both of them. There's a lot of things that we have to do to improve the jail. And I would like to support that. I'd also like to make sure that we have local workers working on it and create jobs out of it as well.
And Peter, how about you?
I believe in public safety. It's one of the biggest parts of my platform. As I mentioned earlier, we want clean streets, safe streets for everybody. And a part of that comes with making sure we have a jail that's suitable. And so if there are parts of the jail that need to be upgraded, improved, and renovated, I would support a budget to make sure that it's done so.
Dorothy, what are your thoughts about the jail?
Well, I think that public safety is important, but we definitely have a problem in this country where we lock way too many people up. So I think we need to look at why our jail population is growing and why we're short on beds. Like this, where can we send people instead of to jail? I mean, we're putting people in jail in mental health crisis with drug problems. Like that may not be the best place to be housing them. And it costs us an extreme amount of money and it's unnecessary. And so we need mental health services in this county. I think that's the biggest issue is that we don't have that county services for people who are in crisis. And we need to have that. And we need to have some sort of place for drug treatment that's not the jail. We do probably need to upgrade the jail, maybe expand it a bit. But we definitely need to stop locking people up who need help, not prison.
Okay. Joe, how about you?
I actually just got done with a tour of the jail this Wednesday. Had a wonderful conversation with David Shook. Now, I'm going to jump to the end of our conversation first. And as we were ending, I said, I have heard for many years that Clark County has actually had one of the worst jails in, let's say, the area. And he goes, no. It was the worst in Washington. He says, for many years, we had a jail that was known throughout the state of Washington as the worst county jail. And I stopped him. I said, David, why? Why were we known as that? And he goes, well, he says, if you really want to know, I feel that it really was because the county, keep in mind, county commission, if we go back to the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, is he says it was really easy to just kind of dehumanize them. These are people that broke the law. We're meeting the minimum standards. The minimum standards are rather low, and it's good enough. The other thing to keep in mind is that our jail was built, don't quote me on this, I want to say it was 1985 that our jail was built. And we've continued this tour, by the way, that was the point of the tour, is to show, listen, this building was built in 1985, and the demographics of the community, not to mention throw in things like drug abuse and, the fentanyl problem, that's wonderful. And all of these issues have continued to change, but the jail has stayed the same. And so he says, we are trying to patchwork this thing together to try to make it work. And so we're at a point where the jail is going to have to be rebuilt. They're talking to the tune of approximately $320 million, by the way, is the budget they're talking. During the conclusion of this conversation I had with David Shook, I kind of mentioned to him, I said, David, what's keeping us from having that jail? And please understand, I'm not saying the perfect, we're not going to have marble walls or anything like that, or golden toilets or anything, but what's keeping us from having the jail that Washington State or Western Washington looks at and goes, look at Clark County, look at how they're doing it. Boy, they're doing a good job. And he goes, that's what we're trying to do here. And so I got to tell you what, folks, I'm really looking at the wonderful opportunity that we might have to really make a difference with these folks. I know it's really easy to look at these people as, well, these people are criminals. They're not the same as us. They may not be the same as me or Dorothy or Matt or Peter. Sorry, okay, took a second. They may not be the same as us, but you know what? They're still humans and they still need to be treated well. And to Dorothy's point, we need to meet them. Shall we say, we need to meet them where they need to be met. A lot of these people have mental health issues, drug problems, things like that. I see a wonderful opportunity for us to incorporate our jail system with programs that could possibly make a positive influence in these people's life, where when they go back out into the community, they go, you know what, there are choices to be made here, and I don't necessarily need to go back to 3 hots and a cot.
To do that, do we need to start from scratch and build a brand new jail?
No, actually, so David Shook was telling me that he says, actually, the one thing that's wonderful about our jail is, he says, the structure is actually in quite good condition. He says, but here's the problem. He says, the problem isn't rebuilding the jail. It's the logistics of how do you do that while holding people in jail. He says, actually, the biggest issue is it sounds like what they're going to do is gut what they would like to do. I should put it that way, is to gut the internals of the jail and rebuild it inside. And then I'm making assumptions here, maybe make it taller. Okay, obviously things like that. But his comment was, imagine doing that while holding people in jail. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anything?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, and talking about this, about jails or public safety or growth boundaries, anything, it all involves money.
Right.
What is your feeling about the annual 1% cap on the property tax levy? Would you take that increase? How would you approach the budget? And we'll start with Joe.
I'm a businessman with a degree in business management. It'll come down to, how does the budget look and what are we gonna have to do at that time? Do I want to increase taxes? No, I don't. I mean, find me one person in the county that says, oh yes, please raise my taxes. Nobody wants to have their taxes raised. But at the same time, we need good services, whether it's law enforcement, schools, roads, infrastructure, all of those things. And if you don't mind me saying, I think that Clark County has habitually been behind on infrastructure. We've done an awful lot of putting things off to a later date when it comes to infrastructure. And if unfortunately, we're going to have to take that into account. The budget will tell us whether we need to make the raise or not, and we'll need to do that at that time.
Thank you. Dorothy?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't gonna cover our budget shortfall, but it's definitely a step towards it. I think that people hear 1% increase and they think, oh, my taxes are going up 1%. They don't understand what this actually means, is it's increasing the budget of the revenue budget that the county's allowed to take in property taxes. I think last year we paid about 75 cents per $1,000. This year it's down to 72 cents per $1,000 because they're not, raising that year over year. And this is maybe like $10 difference for people. It's not really a huge impact. But for the county, it's 1.2 or 1.23 million, I think, would add to the budget.
But if it's $10 or $30 year after year after year, doesn't that add up for?
It actually wouldn't really be that big a difference, right? It's just stabilizing the amount that we're taking as part of the levy. And even then, I mean, our prices are, with our assessments going up year after year, it's not even that much of a stabilization. 1% isn't a lot in that terms. I think it's difficult to explain to people. what that means when we say 1%, that it's just really that budget piece, the amount of the revenue that we're increasing. We need the money. The county needs the services. And property taxes actually only make up 18% of the revenue budget. So this 1% increase, this 1.23 million that would increase next year, if they did a 1% increase this year, would, not be a huge impact, but at least it's starting to get us closer to closing that budget shortfall. But we have a lot more work to do in order to meet the needs of the county over time. I think we need to look at our budget, and we need to start investing in things that bring in more revenue.
Yeah.
We as voters put this cap on ourselves of 1%. And as you all know, the county services with inflation and the cost of living and everything, the costs of county services are going up by multiples of that. Each year, the structural deficit, as it's called, gets larger. And so you take the 1%, but there's still this deficit. So what do? There's all sorts of other taxes that cities and counties and different jurisdictions have found ways to tax: impact fees, levies, TIFs. There's so many different sales tax revenues. There's so many that the average person doesn't know where all their taxes are coming from, but it adds up. And that's how these jurisdictions come up with the deficit, that difference. I'm a fiscal conservative. I would take the 1% because it's really essential to even try to keep up with the costs. But I would also be looking for cost savings. As I said before, I think the county has done a really good job in trying to manage costs and prioritize services like public safety, given this structural deficit. I would be looking for further savings wherever possible. And, but yes, to the 1%.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's actually rather simple. We do what most families do and what most businesses do. They sit down at the table and they take a good hard look at the budget and they say, okay, where are we spending? Where can we cut costs? And you just really make it that simple. Instead of having this idea of let's hold the line or increase to the 1%, we go to each of the department heads and we say, look, give us a third option. Show us where, if able, we can cut costs and cut savings and reduction of taxes. Then we come to the table with all the cards laid out on the table and we say, look, we have an option to increase, an option to hold, or an option to cut. And then you make it a matter of priority, what needs to be spent money on and what doesn't. And then you execute from there. And so to answer the question, and I would say I'm the only one who would vote no against the 1%.
Do you think many department heads would come to that meeting and say, oh yeah, you can cut this from my department, you can cut these personnel?
No, but this is the thing. This is where having the right person in line to have that two-way communication and providing transparency to say, look, this is for the betterment of the entire community of our entire Clark County. And so there might be resistance in the beginning, but the truth of the matter is we work together. And that's why we're being elected to this position, to work towards a better goal, to produce cost savings for the people here of our Clark County.
So then, can you foresee a situation where you would ever take the 1%? Or is there always more that can be cut?
I think just like any business, you come to the table and you look at the data, look at what the people want, and there's always a way to streamline and cut costs while still producing the right services for the community. And as others have mentioned, it's not just in this way that we can create funding.
So looking ahead for, say, next year's budget, what would you cut if you needed to find some savings? What would be the lowest priority?
I want to take a good hard look at the budget, see where we're spending all of our dollars on, and get back to you with the right answer on that.
Home?
Do you think that the county is doing enough where economic development is concerned? Dorothy had mentioned the need for family wage jobs. We see a lot of like fast food businesses coming in, those pay minimum wage for the most part. Again, is there more that the county could be doing to spur good well-paying, economic development? And Dorothy, why don't you start on that?
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. You know, we have low electricity rates. We have a beautiful place to live. You know, we really have a community that should be bringing businesses in. So, you know, we need to be out there marketing Clark County as a place to come and set up your business. You know, we should be having more tech companies here, you know, as part of this like Silicon Forest. We should be seeing more of those jobs on this side of the river. I think, you know, for me, finding a job that I can actually get to is difficult. I live far enough away from a freeway that not having enough jobs in Vancouver really sets me back on being able to find work. And I think that a lot of people face that, you know, and people just don't want to make that commute across the river. And it's not good for our economy because those people are spending their money in Portland. They're not spending it here, and they're not. You know, this is one of those things that could raise revenue. The more we invest in economic development, the more revenue we can bring in for the county and start closing that shortfall and have more services for our community. And I think the other, you know, there's a lot of things we can do. We can set up incubators and resources for entrepreneurs. We can do a lot better to support small businesses. I think we definitely need to work with the state to have a better tax policy for businesses. I think, especially businesses with that lower margin, you know, taxes just really are a burden to them. And we just really can do better marketing Clark County as a place to set up your business. And I'd love to see a day when people don't have to drive across the river just to earn a living.
Great, Joe.
Dorothy, thank you. You stole my thunder. I have to tell you, I understand that there's an awful lot of people in Clark County that are really looking for Clark County to become, to bring in or court a lot of heavy industrial. And I think that's fine. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. However, I'd really like to see Clark County find some way to foster new opportunities for small business, the small business owners, the small tech startups. That's what I was trying to say. Remember, Apple Computer started in a garage, and please understand, I'm not trying to say that the next Apple Computers needs to come out of Clark County, but, to find ways to make the opportunities where those young individuals or old individuals too, I suppose, could start a business. Because I have to tell you, as a family that runs a family farm, I got to tell you what, doing business, and by the way, the problem isn't doing business in Clark County. The problem is doing business in Washington State. I tell you what, it is, let's just say problematic. And so I'd like to see Clark County be in that county that says, let us help you get this going, with opportunities, whether it's you mentioned incubators. Thank you again, Dorothy. Same thing, incubators. I'd love to see that going. At the same time, I do feel that we, or let's just say the future county council, needs to take a serious look at the map, shall we say. There's days I ask myself, does nobody own a map around here? I think we seriously need to look at what parts of Clark County are ready for potential industrialization. And please understand, I'm not saying steel mills and, petrochemical companies, but, people are talking, well, we need some blue collar industrial jobs. Well, we can do that here. Maybe it's, things in the lumber, the timber industry, woodworking, finished wood products. I don't know, fill in the blank here. But, we have those opportunities. We need to, like I said, take a look at the map and see where those may fit in Clark County.
Yeah.
The county invests in many large infrastructure projects with their $500 million budget that could be invested in a way that creates local jobs. You can create project labor agreements that stipulate that labor comes in from locally sourced workers. So you can create more of those family wage jobs that are needed. I think I saw in your reporting that you have to make $38 an hour to afford a home here now, which is incredible. Another idea is if we incentivize this balanced growth, there's ways that we can grow that creates these local jobs and incentivizes businesses, these mixed use developments that creates a more inviting place for businesses to want to locate. I run a business, a nonprofit business, and I know how hard it is to try to keep good staff, pay them well, treat them well, and have a work environment that's inviting and lets them have a good life. That's one of my greatest goals, if elected, to help these working families and create economic growth.
And Peter,
Yeah, thank you. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about because I am a small business owner. And a part of my platform is unleashing our small businesses to thrive. They are the backbone of our community and of our economy. And I believe that Clark County has the potential to make it the most fertile soil upon which a business can be built or moving here from. Clark County should be a destination place. We should have incentive for new businesses who want to start up or businesses who want to relocate here, whether that's working with the state or local to have lower taxes, lower regulation, removing some red tape, and making it more streamlined for the small business owner to start up. Right now, there are challenges to start up a small business. They can get difficult to hire employees. But if we put it on the map to the world, hey, Clark County is the place to start a business, it's not going to be us going to them asking for their business. They're going to come knocking to Clark County saying, sign me up, I want to put my business here. And I believe we can really make Clark County have the most fertile soil upon which a business can be built.
So what should the county do with its railroad line? Dorothy, you wanna tackle that?
Yeah, that's a complex issue.
Boy, isn't it though?
You know, I think moving things by freight is incredibly important as we look towards the future of reducing carbon emissions. I think also, running trucks on our roads does a lot of damage. It costs us a lot of money to repair that. So the more that we can move by freight, the better. So I'm not opposed to at all, development of the railroad. I think I do have questions about industrial that affects water. I think protecting our water is incredibly important going into the future. We're already dealing a lot with pollution, and we need to preserve our wetlands. We need to restore our wetlands and ensure that our water is being filtered back into the aquifer the way that it should be. And I think that developing in places that put that at risk is something that we need to stop doing. We definitely need to look towards making sure that the development that we do along the rail line is environmentally sound. I think that putting heavy industrial next to schools should be absolutely considered, like the same way we wouldn't build a cannabis store near a school, right? We need to protect the kids. We need to ensure that they're safe. I think other than that, freight is good and we should support freight.
Peter, what should the county do about the rail line?
Yeah, as was mentioned, it's been a project years in the making and it's very complex. And I'm not going to stay one hard line one way or the other. I believe in property rights, but at the same time being a good neighbor. And as was mentioned, I do think we need freight because the challenge is the trucks are compromising our roads. And I do think that these issues are not mutually exclusive. I think there's a way where we can find a healthy solution forward for the rail line.
Oh, okay. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
First of all, I'll just say, come to me privately afterwards and I'll tell you a hilarious story about our family and the rail line from World War II.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the farm.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. There may have been a day in about 1948 where there were 5 cars full of dynamite sitting on a railroad crossing in Clark County. But I'll tell you that story later on. So in full disclosure, there's this problem with the FRDU industrial overlay in the sense that it actually overlays either 20 or 40 acres of our own farm. And I've got to tell you, I just testified here Wednesday this last week to the county council about something that I find very frustrating. Is there is an assumption that the people of primarily our Brush Prairie area, if you will, Brush Prairie, and then Brush Prairie out through Cedars out to Battleground, are just begging to sell out industrial land. And what I'm finding is that there's an awful lot of people that are talking big talk about this rail. And yet I can't find all of the people in Clark County that are really positive about it. And I'll tell you this, as a landowner, is we have, shall we say, gone on record to say, folks, we are not going to sell. We are not going to sell in a million years. And I don't know what the heck you're thinking about this. At the same time, I'll mention the exact same thing I did in the last question. I start asking people, does Clark County not own a map? If you haven't noticed, okay, the idea of the rail is to bring freight to and from a central location, hopefully there to go by truck from that location. Brush Prairie, Battleground, Amboy, if you haven't noticed, they're not next to some freeways, really. So I don't know that that rail line is really beneficial to get us product to a place that's a good distribution point within Clark County. Please understand, that's not me saying that I think the rail should be shut down this moment, but there's a part of me that goes, who is making these decisions? Because I don't see good decisions being made. I see decisions being made on, hopeful gain for the county, but I don't see the overall good in it. Let's put it that way. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Matt, how about you?
The rail line can be a real economic driver. There's just some questions about who's operating it right now. The legislature recognized the value of the rail line by authorizing the FRDU, the freight rail dependent uses, which creates the opportunity to put businesses and economic drivers along the railway that could support this community. The big question is where and how and what kind of uses are there. And of course, we don't want to. I did meet since the last debate with neighbors there and heard their concerns about the things that have happened environmentally to water health, which is very important to me working for Ducks Unlimited. And also just how the line has been operated. So I know this is under investigation right now with Department of Ecology, with EPA, and with others, and there's a lot to be figured out. But there's decisions that the county can make on the lease and the operator that still will be made once all the data comes in. We are able to consider all the issues, but it could be a great opportunity. It's there, and we should be able to use it and make it a great thing that we can celebrate and use.
What about Joe's concern that it is not centrally located, that it's not convenient to other transportation?
Just to be clear, that would be, of course, beyond the, let's say, 78th Street, 78th Street, 88th, let's call it Barberton area. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's centrally located to the rural economy that we're trying to encourage. That's one thing that's very strong for me, Joe, others I know. There are products that we could bring on this rail line that's connected to the main line that could be incentivized here. It doesn't have to be the heavy industrial that creates the most toxic threats to our schools and to our communities. There are some positive uses out there, and it would generate new businesses to come into our community and be able to transport goods on an existing rail line. And it would help tourism too, because you could have mixed use on the rail line. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. We just have to proceed very carefully.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Colleen, did you have anything specific?
Yeah, let's just throw this out. Always a lot of controversy over fireworks. We get lots of letters to the editor about it.
Yes.
If a petition would come before the county council saying, we believe it's time to ban fireworks in unincorporated Clark County, what would your position be? And Matt, let's start with you.
Yes. I live in Camas right now, but I did live in unincorporated Fern Prairie. And my family enjoyed having fireworks displays very safely. We treated them as safely as we did burning our brush piles and following the guidelines of the local fire departments. I think that also my pets and the local wildlife that we had on our 5 acres were very impacted by all the noise, so I understand those concerns. It's a question that should be decided on data, and if elected in the council, I would like to collect that data, find out all the perspectives, and make a decision then. I would like to support fireworks in unincorporated Clark County if I could, but maybe there's things that we can do to make it safer.
And by data, do you mean, public opinion?
Not just
Or-
public opinion, but incidents as well. I would like to see the data on fires. My family was evacuated when we were in Fern Prairie. And so fire is a very important issue to me personally. And that is another threat that's a concern. And there's data on that. And so I'd like to collect the data as well as on the economic generation of families buying fireworks in unincorporated Clark County.
Okay, Peter, what would your position be?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful tradition we have, not just in America, but here in Clark County. And it's something that people enjoy doing. I'll start by saying we've seen how these bans end up working. People end up popping up to fireworks anyways. And so I actually agree with Matt on this case. You know, I think looking at the data from incidents, public opinion, and pulling it all together to see, okay, how can we better regulate, if needed, these fireworks? But more importantly, how do we create education and accountability around them? I think there's a safe and good way to pop off the fireworks and enjoy it and enjoy a beautiful tradition. And so I would not be initially in favor of a ban or immediate regulation. You take a step back, you look at the data, and you follow suit accordingly.
Okay, great. Dorothy.
Yeah, this is one of those emotionally charged pieces. From a personal perspective, the 4th of July means a lot to me as a combat veteran, but I also hate fireworks as a combat veteran. I think that it's been a struggle for me. Most years I've had to go camping and leave the area. I think, but that's not always feasible. Sometimes I've been stuck here, and it's difficult. It's difficult on combat veterans. It's difficult on animals. It's difficult on a lot of things, and it costs us a lot of money for the services required, emergency services, putting out fires. These things cost us a lot of money. When people start wildfires, those are incredibly expensive. Like Matt here, I had to evacuate during the fire in 2022, and that, it's jarring. It's a real eye opener about what can happen. And I think that really, because it's an emotionally charged issue, and I do understand, the 4th of July also, I understand the meaning and I understand the reason why people want to do it. I think the county needs to have someplace for people to go before we ban fireworks, before we even have this conversation. There needs to be a community events for people to attend, to see fireworks, to celebrate the 4th. But I am under the inclination that we need to tax fireworks to pay for the emergency services. I think that they need to be paying for the burden on our system. And I think, I can hope people will listen to some combat veterans and maybe be a little bit more respectful. It's a lot easier if it's only on the 4th. But when I lived in Hazeldale, that definitely wasn't the case. And, I've often woken up in the middle of the night. So I had to plan a 2-week camping trip to avoid that. And for most people, that just isn't feasible.
First of all, I want to say thank you for your service, Dorothy. I was also a veteran, but I did not see combat. I was a little younger than yourself. Yeah. So as a Marine, I love my guns. I love my fireworks. But at the same time, I think that, I will say this. I have not made up my mind one way or the other. To add to what everybody has said here, the only other thing I would say that we need to also consider, there's an awful lot of nonprofit groups. I'm thinking, boys and girls clubs type organizations that do raise an awful lot of money due to fireworks sales. And that would be one to consider. That said, I understand the issues we have. Folks, it is not lost on me. We are not the rural community we were even 20 years ago. So is there a day coming where we are going to have to consider, either a ban on, shall we say airburst fireworks or what? I mean, there's any number of level of curtailment. I would definitely consider that. But at the same time, I am a person that does enjoy seeing them go pop in the air. I just wish I could convince the kids in my neighborhood not to do it a week prior to the 4th. Oh, and 3 days after, by the way, too. That one's fun too.
3 a.m.
Yes, ma'am. 3 a.m.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Actually, we have many other topics we could delve into, but we should probably wrap this up. So give us, and you guys are getting off without even talking about the bridge. So
I'll let you talk about Camp Bonneville.
there's, you want to come back sometime? We can- Anyway, give us your final pitch for why voters should support you, and feel free to mention any notable endorsements you want to share. We'll start at this end, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. So my entire platform is this. My name is Peter Cutile, and I'm running for Clark County Council District 4, working for you. I'm the only candidate, and I'll go and say that I'm against increasing taxes, and I'm going to fight to do our part to lower taxes, which of course will then lower inflation. I'm going to fight for more affordable housing in Clark County. I'm going to fight to make sure that the streets are safe, that our sheriff's department is accurately and adequately funded. We're going to fight to make sure that our communities are safe for all people, and I'm going to run to work for you. I'm the only candidate endorsed by the Clark County Republican Party, and as far as I know, I'm the only candidate endorsed by sitting council member Michelle Belcott. And so Peter Cutile. You can find me online at votecutile.com for more information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I'm politically nonpartisan, which is exactly what the voters decided a few years back to change this position to be nonpartisan. So I think it's a good fit. Just last night, I am honored to have received the endorsement of the local firefighters. I also have the endorsement and support of Mayor Ann, Vancouver Mayor, former Mayor of Camas, Nan Henriksen. And because I am nonpartisan, I have a long list of endorsements on both sides of the aisle, and a lot of moderates, like Senator Ann Rivers, also our first county councilor under the new charter, Mark Bolt, Bob Hamlin, former county commissioner in Skamania County, just endorsed me today. Anyway, it's on my website at mattlittle4 clarkcounty.org, and that's where there's more information about me. But I believe I have a strong set of skills that I've developed over my career. I've worked for 3 federal agencies, so I understand how government works. I've worked in Congress for members of both parties as a senior advisor. I work currently with Ducks Unlimited in Olympia very, very often. So I'm working with legislators on a regular basis. I actually cover 8 different states. So I'm working with legislators in 8 different states. I work as a lobbyist in DC for Ducks Unlimited. And I have run multiple nonprofit businesses. And so I have a perspective, and most importantly to me, I'm a dad and a Christian, and I believe strongly in family values, and I'm running to try to help families and businesses who are struggling. And as a nonpartisan, I will listen to all sides, and I will respect all values. I want the public to be more involved if elected. I would like to include the public more in our decision making and allow their voices to be heard more. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
My name is Joe Zimmerman. My family owns and operates Busy Farms in Brush Prairie. I'm a former U.S. Marine. I'm a graduate of Prairie High School, graduate of Washington State University. Go Cougs. And I'm running for our county council because I really want to make sure that we don't get 20 or 40 years down the road and go, oh shoot, we made some decisions that we can't undo, decisions that are permanent, decisions that will impact this county and essentially turn this county on its ear, if you will. For me, that's really important, that the decisions we make today ring true for our children, generations in the future. My kids, my grandkids should be able to live here and have the same, shall we say, see the same, I said it before in my opening, identity for the county that I had as a kid growing up here in the 80s and the 90s. Running around in the hills up above Hawkinson and doing crazy stuff that we won't mention. Folks, I'm just a local kid who wants to support my county. I want people to understand that I understand the history of where this county comes from and hopefully use that as a vision for where I want to see it go in the future. And gosh darn it, I want it to be that experience that I had growing up, a good county that had lots of opportunities for us. If you guys want to find out more, you can look me up on Facebook, Elect Joe Zimmerman, and my website, electjoez.com. I guess that's it. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dorothy.
I'm Dorothy Gasque, Dorothy, like the Wizard of Oz. You know, as a combat veteran, I definitely know what it takes to get the mission done, you know, even when you're facing hard obstacles. As a county charter review commissioner, I have the experience working at the county level with the county manager and, you know, county staff and really getting an understanding of how the county functions. I'm deeply familiar with the charter and, you know, so I know that that's incredibly important. We need people on the council who actually understand the charter and understand what their obligations to the community are. Transparency and accountability are incredibly important to me. I think, you know, good governance starts at home, and this country definitely needs a lot better good governance and a lot more people focused on serving the community, not themselves. And that's what I'm going to bring to this. I moved to Clark County 16 years ago when I got out of the military. And I chose this place because of how beautiful and affordable it is. And while we remain one of the most beautiful places to live in this country, it is definitely not an affordable place to live. And that has to be the critical issue that we solve. We need to make sure that the people who live here can continue to afford to live here. You know, 5% increase in homelessness in the last year is just, it's something that should definitely be breaking our hearts and something that we should definitely be focusing on. We can do better. Our county council can do better. And I just really hope that, you know, this community will understand that they have choices that are not the same, that aren't what they usually see. So I'm Dorothy Gasque. I'm running for Clark County Council to bring a mission-focused approach and, you know, reasonable and balanced solutions. You can find out more about my campaign at dorothygasque.com. And again, that is Dorothy, like the Wizard of Oz. You can just Google me. I'm pretty Googleable.
Right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
You. Glad
All right.
you
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.